Welcome to Socially Powered Digital Marketing Show, the digital marketer's guide to emerging technology, covering blockchain, cryptocurrency, and social media disruption. Hey there, I'm Erin Cell, your host of the show. This week we will be discussing the power of influencer marketing with Neal Schaffer. Neal is an authority on helping innovative businesses digitally transform their sales and marketing. He's the founder of the digital marketing consultancy PDCA Social. He also teaches executives digital marketing at Rutgers Business School and the Irish Management Institute. He is the author of 4 sales and marketing books, including Maximize Your Social and the recently published The Age of Influence, a groundbreaking book redefining digital influence. Check out Neal's Maximize Your Social Influence podcast for a weekly marketing inspiration. I'm super excited to have Neal here to discuss with us his new book, The Age of the Influence. So let's go ahead and get to it. Welcome, Neal, to Socially Powered Digital Marketing Show. I'm super excited to have you here today to talk about all things influence on social media.
Well, thank you, Erin. I'm honored to be here. Thanks for being a reader of my book and reaching out to me. And I'm happy to share any information that's going to help your community.
Perfect. So I have been reading your book, and I want to go through the main points that I'm taking from it. I found it very interesting, the start of the book where you were going through the history of influencer marketing, and it never really dawned on me how far back influencer marketing actually started happening. So can you walk everybody through really the beginning of influencer marketing?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can go way back. There's, been stories about cave art and what have you. One of the, oldest examples is really Wedgwood and Wedgwood, plates. And I mean, we have Wedgwood in our house, and that really started when the royal family enjoyed the product so much that they started sharing about it. And that was sort of one of the first early examples of viral word of mouth from an influencer, being the royal family. That really led to the explosive growth of Wedgwood. And, the royal family actually, sharing the fact that they're using Wedgwood and word of mouth from the biggest influencer of the day being the royal family. Obviously before, the modern printing press and before radio and television, you do have these instances, but it's really the emergence of radio, of silent movie, of TV, where you have, Charlie Chaplin pushing stuff, Babe Ruth pushing cigarettes, and really, with communication channels, businesses have always tried to tap into celebrities, right? If so-and-so will push our product, we'll sell millions. And until now, that's only been a game that big brands could play because the people that they had to work with were primarily on TV. Maybe they were movie star celebrities and they were very expensive. So you think of, for those that remember the 1980s, you had Michael Jackson pushing Pepsi. You had Michael Jordan and Nike, and that was the beginning. Now it's sort of commonplace that athletes sort of work with those brands. And I think, what people forget when we think about influencer marketing is what we're seeing as a modern day version of that. So, the analogy I like to give, and it's now been like 6 or 7 months since my book was published, so I've already sort of, updated it in my mind. So going off the book now, the analogy I like to give is when I was growing up, and I'm going to age myself again, but I'll never forget when Top Gun came out and I was in high school. A week later, one of my good friends showed up riding a motorcycle, in a black leather jacket and a Tom Cruise haircut. Those were the people that influenced my generation. They were Hollywood stars, TV. Yes, we still watched TV back then, or, athletes, what have you, but they were true celebrities. Today, if I was to ask high school students, and my daughter's a sophomore in high school, who influenced them, it's going to be TikTokers, Instagrammers, and YouTubers. And right. I think that's pretty general. And they're people we've never heard of because they've never been on TV. They have grown their influence purely from creating content on social media. And so
it's funny you say that, because as I was reading the book and some of the names that you had in there, I was like, I have no idea who that is, because I don't personally pay attention to much on TikTok or even really YouTube. I mean, I go to YouTube for to look up something if I need to figure out how to,
How-to
I
videos,
don't know.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I think that, for me, and I'm not from the influencer marketing industry. I'm a general, digital and social media marketing consultant. Sure, you can reach out to like Charlie D'Amelio, and I mean, if you're a big brand, but if you're a small business, you're a solopreneur, you're not gonna, you're gonna go bankrupt just trying to work with someone like that, and you don't even know if it's gonna be effective.
Right.
So what I talk about in my book, and I probably should have talked about it more forcefully, is okay, we know that more and more people yield more and more influence. And even the influencer marketing industry says, a celebrity today could be someone with as few as 1,000 followers. The reasoning being that, they still have influence. And if they can influence, 3% of their audience to engage with content, or 10%, then at say 3,000 followers, maybe get 50 to 100 engagements on something, and maybe those engagements lead to clicks. And for a
Right.
lot of brands, they struggle to get 100 likes on a Facebook post, right? For instance,
Well,
from their
and
page.
that's just it. You can have somebody who's quote unquote an influencer, yet they're not actually influencing anybody to actually do anything, right?
Well, yeah. So, so it falls under, once you start to unpeel the onion, there's layers and layers of the stuff, right? So I think the key takeaway here is that digital influence, right now, influence is digital, number one, especially with coronavirus. And number two, it's been democratized to a certain point. But the third point is you can't just base influence is not equal followers. Influence is not, it has to lead to an action, right?
Yep.
And it has to lead to an authentic action. And I think that what's happened over the past 5 years, that businesses have just spent a lot of money following people with a lot of followers, with a lot of engagement. And some of those people, undoubtedly, it was fake followers, fake engagement. And now we're at a point where it's like, well, how do we, we can't stop wasting money like this. And so what I talk about in the book is, if a nano influencer is someone with 1,000 followers, look in your own customer database, look in your own email database. I did this exercise with one of my clients. They have a hair color. I mean, they sell to like Walmart and Amazon and CVS, what have you. But when they started looking at their Instagram followers, they found like verified profiles with like 125,000 followers. And it's like these people are actual customers. Influencers are actual customers. Now you can reach out and, it's funny, while I was talking to you, I got an email from Bank of America. All of a sudden last week, I get this email from Bank of America saying we're creating a small business advisory council and we want you to be part of it. Now, are they sending it out to everybody? Maybe. Are they only sending it out to people with a certain amount of deposit? Maybe. Are they using a social media tool to sort of tap into who are the influencers that are their customers and including them? Maybe. But it's
Right.
the fact of really reaching out to people that already know, like, and trust your business, that have some sort of digital influence, and finding ways of working with them. To me, that's the most authentic and the most powerful way of influencer marketing. Because when they talk about you on social media, they're already your customer. They don't have to make things up. They don't have to use cut and paste text. They're
Right.
naturally talking about you.
Right. And it makes it so much easier because there's always already that you've got that relationship with them. You can, well, hopefully you're going to say good things about them, right? I mean, it's a bank, so you never know. Um, one of the things that I found really interesting, and we touched on this a little bit, is one of the facts you have in there is that it was a Pew Research study, and 68% of people get some of their news via social media. I'm curious if that, like, when that research was done. I don't know if you remember when you pulled that, and if that's still the same, especially now with the election. And I feel like everything is via social media now.
Yeah, so that's funny because I just referenced that stat again for an article I'm writing for a client of mine last
So
night.
funny.
I believe it's 2018,
Okay.
and I was pretty meticulous in trying to make sure that all the stats. The book was primarily written in 2019, so of really making sure that almost every stat came from either 2018 or 2019. I
Right.
think that the U.S. elections in 2016, it was very clear the influence that social media can have, regardless of what side you're on. And what's happened, I talk about this in the book, the convergence of information and communication. I mean, social media started out as a way for us to communicate with each other, but along the lines, over the years, people have shared information, right? And businesses have shared information, and businesses have boosted posts to advertise information. And over a while, we are now consuming more and more information in social media. We may not be looking for the news there. When we're on Google, we're looking for something, right? When we're on Facebook, we're not looking for something, but it appears in our feed. It finds us. And this is what we're finding today is so many people just talk about so many things, and you have so many businesses that it becomes a place where you become influenced by what you see by the news. And, how much that influences you is another thing. I still will go to my sources of news outside of social media for news. But then again, I'll post something about someone. I try not to get too political, but recently I've thrown out a few little political things on Facebook, and you'll get, well, coronavirus, mortality rate's only 1%. And it's like, okay, let me dig in. Let me see where they got that data point, and let me try to vet, how real that is, if it's taken out of context or not. And these are the critical thinking skills we need to teach future generations.
Right.
But regardless, it influenced me in saying, okay, I want to learn more about that data point. Or someone said that, George Soros is funding Black Lives Matters demonstrates, okay, where did this idea come from? What is there truth behind this, right? So in some way or another, we're seeing it, we're absorbing it. It's like a billboard, whether we agree with it or not. How much it's influencing us is another thing, but it's out there, and we can't ignore it because it's in our feed. And that's where that number comes up. Think about life 10 years ago before social media. We were not influenced at all by that sort of digital communication.
No, and what's interesting about it too is that even when you go to research it, you're also being influenced by what is showing up in your search. So
absolutely,
yeah.
critical
So I know
thinking
we
skills.
talked, right? So we talked about this a little bit, and you have not watched The Social Dilemma, but being in marketing, you 100% understand that the social media platforms are in fact serving up whatever it is that you potentially, or what they think you potentially want to see. So you get to see more and more of that in your feed, which just then reinforces whatever, your thought
Bias, or
process
yeah.
is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's all very interesting to me.
Yeah,
And
my from the other end, so my wife has become like this Korean TV show addict. So
oh,
there's a
funny.
TV show on Netflix called Crash Landing on You that she just loves. And I guess in Korea, every year they have this big like Academy Awards where you vote for one male, one female. So, you have, it's like this team BTS and all this K-pop. They have a
Uh-huh.
team. It's like, we need to support, these two people. And my wife's saying, Neal, in order to vote, I need to both register on this Korean website that I'm voting, and I need to share it on Twitter using a hashtag and what have you. I'm like, well, there you go. Once you do that, I said, welcome to the matrix, right? You're on.
Yep. They
So
got you.
here comes the retargeting. Here comes the email database. And when K-pop stars want to go to the United States and have a concert, now they have a bigger database of people they can promote it to. So as a marketing tactic, it's freaking brilliant, right? But from a consumer perspective, if you're not a marketer, you don't get it. Yes, of course they're going to follow you around. The same reason why if you're an LA Times subscriber or Denver Post or whatever, there were people advertising in it because they knew there was a circulation. So it's the same concept. I know it's a little scary to people, unless you block all cookies and maybe use a browser like DuckDuckGo. So there are ways of avoiding it.
Right.
But once you're in the matrix, they're going to find your phone number. Just do a search for anybody. And I talked to a CEO like 10 years ago who hired an FBI investigator to look into. He was fairly wealthy, worried about his family privacy. And 10 years ago, this FBI investigator just found a ton of stuff about this person online. So it is a reality. You can do your best, but at the end of the day, you're going to get cookied, you're going to get retargeting. And you know what? If it serves you a benefit, Google does this. But to me, what I see from Google, I'm okay with. They provide me Gmail, they provide me search. Search is not perfect, but it is free. And I still think I get more value from it than the cost of it. And I think that's the way I want people to think about this.
Yeah. It truly is scary when you think about how much of your information is out there floating around.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of watching Bosch on Amazon Prime, a crime show, and
Oh, yeah.
the detectives are always just going on to Facebook, right, and finding information about the
Oh,
criminals. It's
funny. I'm
funny.
gonna have to check that out. I love true crime stuff.
Oh,
So,
Bosch is awesome.
all right. Well,
BOSCH. All
okay.
right,
I'm gonna
but this
check
is not
that
a
out.
podcast about TV, so
Right. Right.
got carried away there.
So one of the other things you talk about in the book is the different levels of influence. So, I feel like it's very commonly said within our industry is that, it's about a marriage. It's not a one night stand. You need to be building those relationships. But let's talk about the different
Hallelujah.
levels and how you engage with those variety of levels.
Yeah, so I tackle knowing that a lot of the readers of the book, some of them have been doing influencer marketing. So they understand the way the industry talks about influencers, which is these tiers based on the number of followers they have, right? So you have the celebrities, like over 1 million followers. You have like macro influencers, middle, micro, and then nano. And then I go, well, let's break it down a different way. So, I mean, generally speaking, influencers are people, and everybody has a different price tag.
Yep.
And so I don't think, I think obviously the more influence that someone is perceived to have, the more expensive they become, the harder it is to deal with them, and the more things they're going to demand of you, and the higher the chance it turns out to be a one night stand. So the further down you go, especially nano influencers that have never worked with a brand, you have a lot of people that'll work for free product, right? And that's where I think it gets exciting for even, the solopreneurs and small business owners listening to this podcast, is that you can leverage influencer marketing just by providing free product to the right people that might genuinely be interested in that product. And from that, you can get content created, obviously content amplification, what have you. So, that's, and once again, I'd really take a step back, look at your email list, look at your followers. If you happen to be on Shopify, there is an amazing free tool called Caro, Caro. I know you got to be e-commerce. It's getcaro.com, and it will integrate your Shopify shopping cart history, your Instagram followers, and your email database, and it will show you the influencers that already know, like, and trust you in a dashboard. And this is how my client found out about this 125,000 follower.
That's cool. Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
And it's only for Shopify. They're trying to expand the technology so you don't have to be on Shop, but that's sort of the direction where things are going. So you can use tools. There's all these tools are called like email appending services. So I use a tool called voilanorbert.com. Funky name, right?
Yeah.
But for like, a very, very small price, you can send them your email database. All the information's private. It's GDPR compliant, and you can see all the big brands that use them, like Facebook. And what they'll do is, from those email addresses, they'll try to find social media profiles that are registered to them, all using public information. So that's where you can begin to get a sense that some email marketing services, I think MailChimp used to offer this. I think ActiveCampaign offers this at enterprise. Some email marketing services actually offer this, not many. But even if they don't, what you can do is do that and try to find influencers that are already in your database, that are already, your customers, or go into your followers, right? I mean, if you have 100,000 followers, it's one thing, but if you only have a few hundred or a few thousand, you never know the influences that lurk amongst them. And then it's a matter of reaching out and saying, hey, we're creating a new brand ambassador program, a new VIP program, and just have the conversation. How can we work together? You want free product? Awesome. We want you to post about us once a month, or we want you to create content for us because it's going to perform better on our ads or on our organic feed, or, we're going to do a webinar and we'd love for you to speak on it and push it out to your community. I mean, there's so many different ways of collaborating with influencers. I created a chapter in the book, like the 16 different ways to collaborate with influencers. So I think you got to remember that influencers are people. There's not like a set price list, but when you reach out to people that already know, like, and trust your brand, it's just going to be a lot easier from the get-go. If not, you're going to have to introduce who your company is, why you want to work with them, what's the benefit, and it's going to turn into one of these cold outreach emails. It's going to be an Instagram DM maybe, but you're going to send 100 of them out, and maybe only 2 or 3 are going to reply. And that's just the reality when it's a cold outreach. So that would be my advice. And you know what? You don't need 20, 30 people. I mean, start with a few, right? Starting with just a few is already going to expand your reach exponentially if you're like most small businesses that really struggle with social media. So let influencers do the talking for you. And I think you're going to find a lot of value.
That's fabulous. And I think obviously everybody should go buy your book. Neal, one of the things that you talk about in your previous book, which was the Maximize Your Social, why should people pay for social media when it's free?
Here's why influencer marketing is so powerful, because people rule social media. People rule the algorithms, right? On any given platform, people tend to outperform businesses. I think one of the few places where businesses outperform people is blogs. because they can invest tons of money into content, tons of money in SEO. And for the small business owner, it's really hard. That's why you should really go niche with a blog strategy. But when it comes to social media, I mean, any brand could have become an influencer, but their content is just, they're only thinking about their products and their own profit. They're not thinking about what people want to hear, right? What people want to see. So that's where, people outperform. So, social media over time, and if you were just to do a search for decline of Facebook organic reach, this is something that's been happening since 2012. So don't freak out about every new algorithm, because it changes every day and it's different for every person. And I think hopefully by 2020, we all know that.
Yeah.
So algorithms are skewed towards people. And therefore, I think for businesses, if you want to get heard on most platforms, it requires a budget. And that's just the simple fact.
Right.
And that's where, when you work with influencers, you can get heard because you're now publishing and getting the word spread through people. There may be a cost to that as well. It might cost you product, right? It might cost you time. It may cost you training on teaching nano influencers how to take better photos. I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But look, there's a quote from Henry Ford that I usually like to use, and I'm forgetting the exact quote, but it's basically, you need to spend money to make money. And it's been true all along. I think with the early days of social media, there was this thing where we'll just post for free on social media and go viral. And maybe that was possible 8 or 9 years ago. And maybe it's still possible on TikTok, holding ocean spray and skateboarding down the street.
Yeah,
but
who knew?
But for 99% of businesses, that's just not possible. It's something you have to do because you have to be credible. And it is a way to get your message out there. So you need to have a minimal presence. But if you really want to make impact, it is going to require budget. And it's either going to be performance marketing, in which case it's an ad, and ads don't go viral. People don't trust ads. They tune them out. Or you work with people that already have trusted communities and you tap into them. And that's really this concept of influencer marketing. So yeah, companies today organically, sure, you can keep publishing. It's just not going to have much impact until you pay a little money. And I'm all about data-driven strategies, and Maximize Your Social is all about that as well. There are still some networks that do better than others organically, Twitter and Pinterest, because they are more of search networks than social networks. And even the founders of Pinterest say this. Twitter, right, they don't care when you jump off the platform or click on a link, but LinkedIn, you have people saying you got to put your link in the first comment, or do a video instead of a post and put your link in the first, and it's all these hacks, because the algorithm says we want you to stay on LinkedIn and not leave LinkedIn. And obviously Facebook is the same. So that's the challenge.
Which
and
is
that's
funny,
why,
that totally leads me into what I want to talk about next, which is one of the things you say in the book is that it's the 99-1 rule. So 90% are lurkers or stalkers, 9% contribute every now and then 1% of the users create 90% of the content. And one of the things I read in the book was about Twitter, and how Twitter doesn't even care if you tweet, because the majority of people on there aren't tweeting. It's like you say, 1% are creating 90% of that content.
So, yeah, I mean, do a search for anything social media related. Like Jeff Bullis on Twitter comes up like for 80% of the tweets. It's an example of how a few people can create a lot of tweets and get a lot of mind share there. So yeah, that 99-1 rule, I'm going to give a shout out to Michael Brito. I don't know if he's a listener or not, but he's a great guy. He has a few books out as well. And I first got exposed to that concept when he spoke at my Social Tools Summit, a few years ago. But it actually comes from, I think it comes from the influencers. It comes from a book that was written before social media, just about the internet. But, here's the thing. We think like, well, if they have 1,000 followers and everybody has 1,000 followers, everybody's an influencer. And it's really, that's not the case. Most people do not create content consistently. Right. Most people are lurkers. Yes. Like, you see people on Instagram, they haven't posted in a year. And then
they're watching you.
You send them a message and like, boom, it's like, whoa, I thought you were gone, right? They're lurking. And I just look at my daughter. She may not post every day, but every day she spends 30 minutes on Instagram lurking at what everybody else is posting. So that's very typical, which means that when you become a content creator, you become part of that top 1%. So in other words, if Instagram has 1 billion users, maybe 100 million are semi-active, but there's only 10 million that publish consistently every day. And I think if you go to your feed, you realize it's the same people. It's not everybody you follow that publishes every day, right?
Right.
And that's really the whole point here, is that content creators are small. And I think if you're, a solopreneur, a small business owner, it's like, okay, I want to tap into influencers. If you work in a niche area, you're going to do a search for blogs, there aren't that many blogs that talk about certain subjects. There aren't that many podcasts. There aren't that many YouTubers. There aren't that many people on social media. And then you realize, wow, these few content creators are unique because they own the space, right? Because nobody else
Right.
is talking about it. So
Yep.
so that's where the fact that people are consistently creating content, any one of these networks or content mediums, they are invaluable as a content creator. And you really want to think twice of how you collaborate with them and how you treat them. And that's really what I wanted to get across with that rule. It also means that if you and your business can become a content creator, you also begin to influence. You might become one of those top 10 that are talking about a certain subject in a very, very short amount of time, just because there aren't enough people talking about it. So content creation at the end of the day is what makes influencers influential. And it's what can make your business influential as well.
This has been fantastic. I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. What is the best way to connect with you? Where do you spend most of your time on social? Obviously, you're on social, so.
Well, thank you so much, Erin. It's really been an honor to be here. And so my name is Neal Schaffer. I am the real Neal, so it's spelled Neal. And my last name is Schaffer, Schaffer. And I say that because that's where I am on social media. Every platform, it's Neal Schaffer. It's nealschaffer.com. My new book is called The Age of Influence, came out in March 2020, available everywhere. And I also have a podcast where I talk about this concept of digital influence. It's called the Maximize Your Social Influence podcast. I tend to spend more time on Twitter, primarily. I'd say second is LinkedIn and third is Instagram.
Okay.
So if you want to find me, I spend less and less time on Facebook for various reasons.
Uh-huh.
But Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn always are exciting for various reasons, and that's where you have the best chance of finding me.
Perfect. And I'll have links to everywhere to connect with you on the blog post. So
Awesome, thank you.
cool. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed that interview with Neal as much as I did. I just found it fascinating talking about all things influencer marketing. So, thanks for listening to the show. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player so that you don't miss out on our latest episodes. And if you are enjoying the show, we would sure love a review on your favorite podcast player. And be sure to connect with us on all of your favorite social media platforms. You can find us everywhere at Socially Powered, sharing tips, tricks, and the latest episodes on all things social, crypto, and blockchain related. Have a great day.